So we're gonna do a little Q&A, questions and answers. I'm on like YouTube almost every day now, and you guys get to hear every one of my crazy opinions in the mornings. It's time to ask you guys what you think. We're gonna be passing around microphones. If you have a question about anything, silver, gold, cryptos, conspiracies are great. We're gonna get Litecoin Lisa up here to talk a lot about that. She loves a good conspiracy. First of all, are there any questions that like are popping off in your head? Here's a hint: if you raise your hand early, you get your question in, because later everybody stops being shy about questions and everybody's asking me questions from all over the place. So, any questions right now? We have one back there.
Do you look at U.S. Debt Clock? USDebtClock.org?
Yeah, I know it well.
Okay, so the unfunded liabilities of the U.S. government, it's like $169 trillion. Can you explain that?
Yeah, we print money and give away money and promise money that we don't have. An interesting thing about the U.S. Debt Clock, and those of you who don't know, there's a website called the USDebtClock.org. And everybody, because it looks official, they think it's from the government. It's actually not from the government. It's a private website run by some people who, they started a long time ago, and it calculates how much debt, and it goes by the second. And it just keeps churning up higher and higher. I think the price of silver on that, it's like where it should be compared to like 1980 and I don't know, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 or something like that. But yeah, I mean, if you live in America, I don't even know the total anymore. It used to be like $150,000 when you're born, you owe that. One of the things about economics, there's a rule in economics. It's called the golden rule of economics. Real fancy name for it. But what it is, it came out in the 1960s. It was a Nobel Prize winning economic formula, but it said no generation has the moral authority to put the next generation in debt. And that, it just rings true. And now here we sit with whatever, 129, 140, a quadrillion. Does even a quadrillion even matter? I mean, there are times when our government prints money and they don't tell us about it. I mean, we're talking trillions of dollars, and they won't even tell other countries about it either, because they might get mad at us. But what's to stop the United States of America? Does anybody know the difference between $100 billion and $1 trillion in today's economic system? It's one little computer zero. That's all it is. It's Jerome Powell or Janet Yellen or Alan Greenspan putting one more zero on the end of 100 billion to make $1 trillion. And that's all it is. That's as hard as it is to make $1 trillion. It kind of gets a little scary. And most of that unfunded liabilities is guaranteed pensions. And what they don't tell you is, has anybody heard of the Fdic? The Fdic is the entity that insures your bank account up to, what is it, $200,000, $250,000. They don't have any money. They don't have any money, and they literally, what they have is, I think it's 0.03% of what they insure they actually have in assets. So what are they going to do? How are they going to pay that $250,000? They're going to print it. And what happens if you print more money and more money and more money? Well, more than inflation, it's devaluation of the currency. Inflation gets you. So, those numbers I read about inflation, John Williams of Shadow Stats says the number's more like 18.2 or something percent. Did anybody get an 18.2% raise in the last year? If you didn't get an 18.2% raise, let's say you didn't get any raise at all, you lost. It's like they took away 18.2% of your money because you can buy less. That's why inflation is Greenspan called it the shabby secret of the status. It is literally docking your pay. And not only that, it's taking all all the money you saved your entire life and taking away 18.2% of it. Can you imagine that? I mean, those of us who are close to retirement and have this, okay, I got my nest egg. I just lost 18.2% of my nest egg in a year. Because the value of what it can buy went down by that amount. It's crazy. It's crazy. So, yeah, that debt clock's a great way to scare your wife and children and your neighbors. Say, look at the debt clock. Okay, next question, please. Next happy question. We got one back here.
Hey, Bix, we're done with YouTube. Any chance you'll follow Uncle Cliff over to BitChute on a regular basis so we can hear what you have to say?
Rumble and all the other ones. Yes, and yes. But here's the problem, and I'm like one of the last guys who does what I do and still on YouTube. That's allowed because I dance around their algorithms. But the problem is we'll be moving. Like right now on YouTube, I just hit 100,000 followers. That's a big audience to get this message out to. On Rumble and BitChute and all those other ones, you can say whatever you want practically, but the audiences are 2,000, 3,000. I'm going to do both. I have been doing both more lately. On the private road, I talk about all the fun stuff if you guys are on the private road. But on YouTube, I can talk about silver. They allow me to do that. I can talk about gold. I can talk about money printing. I can't talk about politics. That's not allowed, especially in election time. I can't talk about the jab. Yes, I will do more and more on BitChute. Circle back around to the question, because I can say more, and I think everybody has to say more, and they get pissed off at our politicians and the social media companies run by. A lot of people tell me that social media is not a public platform. Social media are private companies. They can do what they want. And I say, bullshit. My tax money paid for the invention of Google through a company called In-Q-Tel. In-Q-Tel is a company run by the U.S. government to invest in tech companies. And some people say it's run by the CIA. But they put down the seed money for Facebook, for YouTube, for Google. They put down the original money. That means your tax money paid for it. So don't tell me this is not a public square where everybody should have a voice. You should have a voice on all these big media companies if In-Q-Tel had invested in it, because that means you invested in it. Your tax money went there. And they like to tell you your tax money goes to, I don't know, what do they tell us our tax money goes to? I don't know. I heard it was the Queen of England gets all the tax money.
I want to talk about devolution.
Okay.
What do you know? What do you think? Is Trump coming back?
I don't think we need him. I'm in Lisa's camp. I don't think we need him. I think he did his job. I think he did so much more than what people fully understand behind the scenes. We need someone who could heal the country. And I know so many Democrats in California. They will never, ever change their mind about Trump, even if they find out what he did behind the scenes. But they will never change their mind. And we need someone who can unify the country going forward after the collapse of the monetary system. So devolution is how our country is devolving right now. We're living through it. We could see a massive devaluation of the currency. If the banks go down, all of a sudden what you have in your pocket becomes very, very valuable, because there'll be nothing left in the bank. I think one of the reasons that there is a coin shortage is because the U.S. Mint is trying to hang on to the coins. They know that their money is different than the Federal Reserve's money. Federal Reserve is a standalone entity. Some people say it was enveloped into the U.S. Treasury. I wouldn't want Federal Reserve in the U.S. Treasury. That means you take on the Federal Reserve's debt. We don't want that. I think as we go through this collapse, and every banker I've talked to, everybody I know, every political leader has talked about how there's going to be a revaluation You can't print money to infinity and expect infinity to last forever. Infinity doesn't last forever when it comes to money printing. One of the days people will say, I don't trust this money anymore, and that's why we see 9.1% inflation. The only way to stop 9.1% inflation is to raise the interest rates to 9.2. They raised the interest rates today to what, 2.5? Not even close. What would a 9.2 or 10 or 20% interest rate do to, say, the housing market? Destroy it. As in, so would the banking collapse, though. I mean, the price of housing is 100% contingent upon the availability of cheap money. The housing market has already stopped, pretty much dead in its tracks, because interest rates are up at 7 or 8% from a bank. If you have good credit, it's going to just keep going up. And that's because so much money is being printed. Like massive.
So the question I want to ask you, who's in charge of the military? Do you think Biden's calling the shots?
No.
With the military?
I don't know. I saw Biden get sworn in at 11:55 in the morning, 5 minutes before Trump even would have theoretically transferred the power. So I think the Biden administration is it's not real. It's a show. We're living through a show. But I blame Trump and the good guys as well. I mean, what's wrong with truth and honesty? You know, is there anybody left in our country who could tell the truth about what's going on? No, there's nobody left. And we're going to have to suffer through that. And when the truth comes out about what happened and what is happening, people are going to be pissed. Really pissed. At both sides. I mean, yeah, there's the white hats who are trying to save us and all that. They're not telling us the truth. Yeah.
Well, don't you think that Trump, when we talk about the financial system, was just prolonging the inevitable? I mean, why would he want the financial system to come down on his watch? Why would he not want it to come down on their terms?
Yeah, but that's true. Yeah, I think that's what he's doing, but that doesn't mean it's right. That doesn't mean... See, when Trump was in office, he rigged more than the guy before him. That's all he did. It was obvious to everybody, I know, that Trump was just rigging. Yeah, he brought jobs back, but in the meantime, he was rigging the stock market, the bond market. He made J.P. Morgan a hell of a lot of money. I remember one of the press conferences, and the bankers were in the crowd, and Trump said to the J.P. Morgan banker, who answers to Jamie Dimon, he said something like, hey, your boss is kind of happy with me right now, isn't he? This is just as Jamie Dimon, the world's biggest criminal, running the world's largest bank, J.P. Morgan. I did a study on a YouTube video the other day talking about silver price manipulation. I've studied this for 20 years. And the J.P. Morgan traders all over the news, the head trader used to hurt his fingers because he was clicking his mouse so fast to cancel orders. They call it spoofing. That's not what was being done. These are all computer programmed in. The whole financial system is run off computer programs. Whoever's got the power to control the computer programs controls everything. Jamie Dimon has 50,000 computer programmers working for J.P. Morgan to rig every market on the planet. So nobody was clicking his mouse. You don't have to do that anymore. Jamie Dimon could sell 10 million ounces of silver in like a quarter of a second if he wanted to. And they're all fake, and they're all derivative trades. That's what is going to fall apart. Trump did the same thing. He rigged every single market. Yes, the country did better off with that kind of situation where we were starting to rebuild our manufacturing. And then as soon as Biden got in, they allowed Biden to do what he wanted to do, knowing it would destroy the country. So, yeah, it's a great lesson, but it's still a fraud. We're going to learn a hard lesson about inflation. Wait till it hits 20 or 30% and 40%. Wait till you're paying $20 for gasoline in the next couple months.
You know, my point is, just think about it. If Trump, anything that Trump would try to do in his presidency, he had the complete apparatus of the mainstream against him.
But he had the military on his side, which they could complain all they want. What was going on behind the scenes was more important.
2 years ago or 3 years ago, the military taking over the government worked? I mean, is it better now that we understand their plan to the nth degree?
But we don't. We don't
going
understand their plan. I don't think anybody does, because they haven't told us. I mean, you could try to decipher it. Lisa does that all the time. Decipher what's going on behind the scenes. But I don't think anybody knows. I know the Fed doesn't know how to make this transfer to this new monetary system. I find it hard to believe that the good guys do, other than the obvious.
I mean, you brought up BlackRock earlier.
Yep.
Okay, so BlackRock, they're out there buying complete subdivisions.
Yes.
They're investing all this money.
Yes.
Getting rid of this paper currency, and they're buying all the physical assets they can possibly get their hands on.
Yes, and they're in the Fed managing their book. It is complete criminality. It's a great example of a non-bank criminal enterprise, BlackRock. And they grabbed a whole bunch of the silver rigging traders to work for them as well. And they own SLV, the largest silver ETF. Huge fraud.
So to me, that's the cabal. BlackRock,
that's part of it.
The central bankers,
yeah,
the globalists, this whole group are all together,
right,
and their job is to take down humanity.
Well, yes, but at the same time, let's say the banks crash. How are they going to enforce their rights? Yeah, BlackRock owns millions of subdivisions and things like that. The people are way more powerful than BlackRock when something like that happens. Their power is when the system continues. They lose all power when the system fails. J.P. Morgan, no one will know their name when the system fails, because their wealth and their strength comes from the old system. If there's nobody's going to pay their debt again. China's going through this same thing right now. They're stopping paying their mortgages by the millions. And that's how you want to take down a bank? Get everybody to work together. We're so much stronger than the criminals that control us.
What we're looking at in the United States?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's going on in China?
When it comes here is when the ATMs stop working. I talked to Ben about this morning. Is anybody going to pay their mortgage again? No. Is any cop going to enforce a repo of a house? No. They lose when the system falls to that level. When the people wake up, it's like that movie Ants. When all the ants figure out that there's so many more of them than they are of their controllers, that's when we win. And I think that day is coming up quick.
And I do too, and I think that's where we're sitting here today, okay? And I'm a car dealer, so I know what the inflation is on these automobiles. And I can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's 35%. Because I can look
in 1 year. In 1 year. If
I'm
you can
talking
get
about
new cars, you
I
can't even
bought
get a
in
new car a
19.
lot of the times now.
And so we know that there's a huge discrepancy in all these numbers, okay? And I'm sitting here trying to save my assets, and I have bought in to Bix Weir. In a
That's
big
scary.
Way.
I didn't want to
in a
think
big
about
way.
that. Everybody has to do their own research. Don't believe anything I say.
Well,
all I do is point people in different directions.
I went through the Road to Ruta. I went through all of the comic books. And my common sense told me that what you were saying about silver made common sense. This isn't some magic thing, okay? But you backed it up and you made it believable. And when you do your own research, then that's what happens. And I think we're at a point in time right now where devolution is in play. I think that we're seeing this whole apparatus come down in front of us, and there's going to be a period of time where we're not going to know what we own or what we don't own.
Yes, I agree 100%. Very good questions, very good comments. Does anybody else have a comment issue? One over here and over here. That was great stuff. And is anybody kind of on the same page that things are obviously falling apart? The question is, are they falling apart on purpose and for a reason?